First of all, there's somebody that's been watching the videos for a long time, and I know there are a lot of you, but this particular person I want to speak to is a friend of ours named George Mead. And George, thank you for your comments. You're living in the state that I was born in. So I'm going to ask you a favor, brother. If you're out and about and you happen to run across Cindy or Steve Barr from Pendleton, I was born in Anderson. If you can find them and let them know about these videos, it would be really cool. That they're in Pendleton, Steve and Cindy Barr. I believe Cindy is some sort of a leader, at least that was the last thing I heard. I'd really appreciate if you could help me find them. Also, as I watched last week's video, I realized that I had mentioned the fact that Catherine's mom was a Christian, but when I pulled up, talking about Renee, I really failed to mention Renee's faith. And so I should make it clear tonight that Renee was an NST. He was a Nichiren Shoshu member, okay? And one of the issues between my best friend and I was the fact that when the split between the temple and SGI occurred, he went one direction, and much to everyone's surprise, again, I didn't. Okay, in fact, I still have a lot of friends that are temple people because they felt that was the profound faith, and no, I don't agree with that. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands, because this is put out by the SGI study department. There's going to be a point in time where they're going to talk about the priesthood of NST, okay? Nichiren Shoshu. And I know that there are somebody out there, there are some people out there, I don't get too many thumbs downs, but I want to make this point. If you watch what we're videoing here, strictly for the sake of discouraging people from watching it by giving it a thumbs down, I warn you, be very careful about what you're doing, okay? And I'm not being arrogant when I say that. You can think I'm arrogant, but I'm warning you for the cause that you make. When you obstruct people from viewing what we're doing here, I believe that you're making a cause that will be reflected in your life. Now, hide and seek. I don't know. I can tell you, my friend Renee, first of all, let me explain about Nichiren Shoshu as far as I'm concerned. How I feel about Nichiren Shoshu has nothing to do with Daisaku Ikeda. Okay? How I feel about Nichiren Shoshu is personal. Okay? I got excommunicated by some dude who had nothing to do with me in any way, shape, or form. All right? Who took it upon himself to decide that he had the authority to deprive me of the lifeblood of Buddhism just because he was in a hierarchical position to do so. And he didn't just do it to me, he did it to like 15 million people at once. Okay? And I didn't have to know anything about Daisaku Ikeda or anything going on between Nichiren Shoshu and Soka Gakkai to know that that was messed up. That was nowhere to be found in anything that I had read. And so unless you're either making stuff up or you got a bunch of secret shit that you're holding back, no one should have behaved in the way Nichiren Shonin behaved. Now, do also understand, like I said, I was a Nichiren Shoshu member and a devout one for 18 years before the split and my decision to go a different direction than most of my friends. And like I said, I've been to the head temple 11 times on my own. Okay, so all of the conclusions that I've drawn personally were only validated by Daisaku Ikeda, and subsequently I was given cover for my personal opinion to be able to express it as the boilerplate of SGI. Okay, but for me, it doesn't come from SGI. It comes from the act of Nichiren Shonin in excommunicating 15 million people in a power play. Now, you can say that's because Daisaku Ikeda and the Soka Gakkai were messing up doctrine or slandering this and that. I just had a huge fight with a friend of mine. I hope he still considers me a friend. That is a Nichiren Shoshu member. And, you know, the thing that I can't go along with is the fact that just by virtue of that fact that we are practicing as lay individuals, that we are not allowed to do so many things. I mean, it's just unfortunate. I lost my train of thought. I'm sure I'll get it back. But the bottom line was that, oh, I know what I was going to say. Do understand, for me, I never wanted a Nikken Gohonzon, for instance. I had a Nitatsu Shonin Gohonzon I was perfectly happy with. When they gave me Ogatagi, the big one, I was forced. And I was really like, what's wrong with you? Why wouldn't you? I'm going like, that Gohonzon looks angry to me. You know? Whereas all I saw in the Nitatsu Shonin Gohonzon was like this peaceful thing, okay? And I never could chant to my friend Renee's Gohonzon without feeling ill, okay? So these are all personal experiences. This wasn't psychosomatically drilled into my head by you know, Soka Gakkai or anything like that. And so I wanted to say that, you know, last week I started out by talking about what was the luckiest thing that ever happened to Sairenbo. Remember? He got exiled to Sato Island. And then I talked about what was the luckiest thing that ever happened to Nichiren. Tatsunokuchi, right?
Yes.
I just wanted to tonight say, what was the luckiest thing that ever happened to me? And I'm going to say it straight up. Daisaku Ikeda became the third president of the lay organization known as the Soka Gakkai. And the reason that's the luckiest thing that ever happened to me is that that gentleman decided to take the teachings of Nichiren seriously and embark upon a crusade to establish Kosen Rufu, worldwide propagation. In the absence of that push, which was a really ballsy big thing to do at the time, he was still a very young man. This was like, now we're taking Japanese religion and we're going to try and take it out into the West and take it. And this is very, very, very difficult and must be done carefully so that the teaching doesn't get completely convoluted. And because, as I mentioned, you know, in the past, because of the background of how I started, I could understand. I mean, I couldn't have known about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo if Daisaku Ikeda had not decided to do that. It's not like Nam-myoho Renge-kyo had never existed in America. Again, Nichiren Shu had temples on the West Coast up until World War II. They were all withdrawn once they went to war. Okay? So it's not like Nam-myoho Renge-kyo had never gotten to America, but had Nam-myoho Renge-kyo ever been propagated outside of the Japanese race in America? No. Did they go to black people and American Indian people and Hispanic people and white people and every kind of people, regardless of what kind of people they were? No. Okay? So, as far as I'm concerned, Nichiren Shoshu owes everything to the Soka Gakkai. I don't mind saying that. I'm not in a position of authority for that to mean anything other than it being my own opinion. But when I say the things I say, I'm not slandering. I'm actually calling out an observation that is based on a tremendous amount of prayer. If you think that I decided to stay with Soka Gakkai instead of going to Nichiren Shoshu without contemplating that on the deepest level and chanting tons of Daimoku about it, you'd be mistaken. I did not go with the herd. I didn't like split with the herd or stay with the herd. I was never part of any freaking herd. Okay? I was always independent in my relationship with the Gohonzon, and the kind of benefits I got exceeded anybody I knew. So I was very confident in what I was doing, and frankly, once I started reading Daisaku Ikeda, I realized, hey man, we're on the same page. That's what I got out of it too. Okay? So, with that being said, anybody that wants to flip me a thumbs down on the rest of what I'm reading here, do so at your own risk. You don't affect me at all. All right? So we're going to continue now on page 20 of Commentary on Buddhahood. This one's again on the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death. And we'll start again on page 20. And it says, life is the entity of Myoho Renge-kyo from the Gosho. Shakyamuni Buddha, who attained enlightenment countless kalpas ago, the Lotus Sutra that leads all people to Buddhahood, and we ordinary human beings are in no way different or separate from one another. To chant Myoho Renge-kyo with this realization is to inherit the ultimate law of life and death. This is a matter of the utmost importance for Nichiren's disciples and lay supporters, and this is what it means to embrace the Lotus Sutra. Now, do you ever chant Myoho Renge-kyo in Nichiren's teachings? No, you always chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so he's saying to chant Myoho Renge-kyo. That's, again, the further qualification that there is no separation between Myoho Renge-kyo and Nam-myoho Renge-kyo when we're saying that they're interchangeable. Okay, so don't think Myoho Renge-kyo is one thing and Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is something else. One pertains to one period of time, another pertains to now. Okay? Yes. So, going on with the lecture. Starting with this passage on page 20, Nichiren Daishonin outlines 3 points regarding the kind of faith that enables people to receive the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death. Okay, so this is a matter of fortune, okay, to inherit this. This isn't a matter of knowledge, all right? First, he explains that there is no fundamental distinction among Shakyamuni Buddha, who attained enlightenment countless kalpas ago, the Lotus Sutra that leads all people to Buddhahood, and we ordinary human beings. He's saying basically all 3 of those things are the same. He then clarifies that it is chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with this realization that all of them are the same that enables us to receive the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death, saying it is a matter of utmost importance for the faith of Nichiren Buddhists. Shakyamuni Buddha, who attained enlightenment countless kalpas ago, is the Buddha who has always been rescuing living beings from the suffering in the Sahe world since the remote past. Indeed, this Buddha can be understood as representing the function of eternal Myoho Renge-kyo that liberates living beings. Shakyamuni attained Buddhahood through realizing that life was nothing other than a manifestation of the fundamental law of the universe, Myoho Renge-kyo. It may be understood that Shakyamuni Buddha, who attained enlightenment countless kalpas ago, appears in the Lotus Sutra as a representation of life's innate Buddhahood at one with the eternal Myoho Renge-kyo. In sutras other than the Lotus Sutra, the men of the 2 vehicles, women, and people of incorrigible disbelief are described as incapable of attaining Buddhahood. The Lotus Sutra, however, teaches that all people are equally capable of realizing the life state of Buddhahood, and that Myoho Renge-kyo is the fundamental law that makes this so. The Lotus Sutra also reveals that the enlightenment of all is the vow and true intent of the Buddha, and it describes the Buddha who fights for all eternity to accomplish this vow. In addition, it emphasizes the crucial mission of the Bodhisattvas who make the Buddha's vow their own and fight for all people's enlightenment. Because the true cause of enlightenment is Myoho Renge-kyo, life's essential law, we can, in the end, think of the Lotus Sutra that leads all people to Buddhahood as referring to Myoho Renge-kyo itself. In the previous passage, Nichiren explains that the entity of ordinary human beings is also nothing other than Myoho Renge-kyo. Shakyamuni Buddha, who attained enlightenment countless kalpas ago, the Lotus Sutra that leads all people to Buddhahood, and we ordinary human beings, these 3 are, therefore, the different manifestations of Myoho Renge-kyo in terms of the Buddha. So that Buddha Shakyamuni he's talking about there is not any different than you. It's the same as you. That's what we just said to start the whole chapter, right? In terms of the Buddha, his teachings and living beings. But since they all derive from Myoho Renge-kyo, there is no essential difference among them. The Lotus Sutra's essential teaching is that the Buddha, his correct teaching, and we ordinary people are equal as manifestations of Myoho Renge-kyo. To believe in the Lotus Sutra, therefore, is to believe this point. All right? Everybody's with me? Mm-hmm. Okay. On the contrary, the pre-Lotus Sutra teachings are based on discriminatory views that consider the Buddha as a transcendental being far removed from us ordinary people. The Lotus Sutra refutes such elitism through its teaching that Buddhas and living beings are equal, that those who embrace the mystic law are themselves Buddhas. Nichiren, as an ordinary person, proved through his own life that the Buddha, his correct teaching, and the ordinary people are ultimately entities of Myoho Renge-kyo and therefore no different. Furthermore, he identified this ultimate mystic law, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, as a means of practice, revealing it in the form of the Gohonzon of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Everybody caught what he was saying there? Mm-hmm. Okay. Therefore, when we develop confidence in the Gohonzon inscribed by Nichiren and chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, revealed by Nichiren, exactly as Nichiren did. It says here exactly as he did, but I'm emphasizing this is of the same mind as Nichiren, okay? We can manifest within our ordinary lives his same life of Buddhahood. We can attain the same Buddhahood as Nichiren Daishonin. There is no separation between our life and the life of Nichiren Daishonin. We consider Nichiren, because he was the person that brought forth Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, to be the original teacher. Nichikan, the early 18th century restorer of Nichiren Buddhism, which is totally believed and quoted by Nichiren Shoshu, we adopted and consider those same tenets of faith as Soka Gakkai. Nichikan, the early 18th century restorer of Nichiren Buddhism, writes, when we accept and believe in this Gohonzon and chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, we ourselves become the object of devotion of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, which is the sage Nichiren. Now, what did that just say? Some pretty heavy stuff that's so important for you to understand. What is that saying? Nichikan's the one that's promoting this. Nichikan's the one that's clarifying this. This is, again, this was not understood prior to Nichikan's teaching and correct understanding. That's why they call him the Great Restorer. Don't forget, Nichiren Shoshu had some 9-year-old high priests that they had to borrow from other sects. They were so weak at points in time in their history. Okay? Nichikan comes much after that. So he's the Great Restorer in that he requalifies what the truth is. All right? Because it's become distorted based on the religiosity of Japanese Buddhism. Temples, priests, schools, high priests, all that stuff, okay? So I'll read it again. When we accept and believe in this Gohonzon and chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, okay, so when we accept and believe in, so when we have absolute doubt-free faith in the Gohonzon and practice in accordance with what we've been encouraged to practice by Nichiren, chant abundant daimoku, study and teach others, we ourselves become the object of devotion of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, okay? Which is the sage Nichiren. So he's saying that the Gohonzon and the life of Nichiren are the same, and your life and the Gohonzon and the life of Nichiren are all the same. Do you understand? But when does that occur? Does that occur now? Is that just a common fact? Were we all just born that way?
No.
No. We open the door to that through our action in this world, okay? We're the ones that create what he just described. Nichikan doesn't create it. Nichiren doesn't create it. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo doesn't create it. You, as a temporary gathering of the 5 components, taking the correct action based on faith in the correct teaching, is what establishes that truth. You got me? Okay, so this is all about you and a personal relationship with not just a scroll in the box, but with the original teacher. Do you understand? Okay, so Nichiren encourages us to chant Myoho Renge-kyo with this realization that there's no separation between us and the Gohonzon with him. He's the original teacher. We're his original disciples. How could there be any separation? Why do we give rise? Only to propagate his teaching. Okay? Would he do it if he could without us? Yeah, but there's only, that's a single gathering. Okay? This takes more than the sands of the Ganges. That's how many people popped up in the ceremony near, right? Came out of the earth. Get it? So he says, Nichiren encourages us to chant Myoho Renge-kyo with this realization. By realization, Nichiren does not simply mean an intellectual understanding. And that's why I was trying to say last week and explain that actual Ichinen Sanzen and theoretical Ichinen Sanzen are as far apart as night and day. Okay? That to achieve an understanding of theoretical Ichinen Sanzen does not mean you've achieved actual Ichinen Sanzen. Okay? So that would be theoretical Ichinen Sanzen, an intellectual understanding. Okay? Of 3,000, the simultaneity of cause and effect of all these concepts. Okay? Even when we are told that Shakyamuni, the Lotus Sutra, and we ourselves are essentially one, we cannot understand this so easily. Can you? No. The first time you hear that, it's words. It's words. It's like, oh, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. Oh, that's a teaching. That's cool. But does that like hit you here and you go, oh. No. Okay? Because those words are not what establishes that, oh. Okay? That's established by you in front of the Gohonzon endeavoring to perceive the truth of that statement. How could that be? If you never wonder, how could that be? How can you ever understand it any more deeply than the superficiality of hearing the words? You cannot. Okay? So for the wisdom to well up inside you, to ask those questions to the Gohonzon, that only you and the Gohonzon can get answered between yourselves. Okay? That's called faith. That's called the faith of the Buddha. All right? Even when we are told the Shakyamuni, the Lotus Sutra, and we ourselves are essentially one, we cannot understand this so easily. Instead, Nichiren is referring to an understanding through faith. What is faith? The faith is faith in what? Yeah, faith in Gohonzon. You're going to answer that one every time. And what the hell does that answer? It's true. That's it. That is exactly what I'm going to say is exactly what you just said. Okay? What is a faith?
To believe that you are the Buddha.
Yeah, but why do you have the ability to have that belief? What is your faith actually in? Who told you that?
You have to,
you have to practice.
you have to practice.
Yeah, all that. But again, what is the source of when we talk about faith, we're talking about faith in Nichiren.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, because Nichiren's the one that just said we are the same as Shakyamuni, not the Lotus Sutra.
No.
Okay, Nichiren's the one that says we're the same as the object of devotion. Certainly not the priests. No. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so this is believe in Nichiren is what faith means. Believe Nichiren's teaching is what faith means. Do you understand? Okay, so instead, Nichiren is referring to an understanding through faith, a conviction through practice. Okay, because how is that faith developed? Is it, I'm going to believe everything Nichiren says. I'm handled.
No. Action.
Through
Right, and so what is action?
practicing and study.
Yes, but that's why it continues on to say, let me read the whole sentence now. Practice. Practice is the action. In the absence of practice, the faith isn't real faith. It's theoretical faith.
Right.
Okay? That's the whole point. It's theoretical faith. And trust me, I know how hard it is to chant Daimoku, but I sure trust that you guys chant a lot of Daimoku. it's necessary.
Yes.
The amount that I chant has not gotten less. It has gotten more.
Mm.
All right?
Right.
Nichiren encouraged, I'm going to reread that whole paragraph.
Okay.
Nichiren encourages us to chant Myoho Rengekyo with this realization. He's actually saying, because it's a quote, he says chant Myoho Rengekyo, but we never chant Myoho Rengekyo. He's saying chant Nam Myoho Rengekyo with this realization.
Mm-hmm.
By realization, Nichiren does not simply mean an intellectual understanding. He's not saying just to wrap your head around this idea. He's saying live it. Even when we are told that Shakyamuni, the Lotus Sutra, and we ourselves are essentially one, we cannot understand this so easily. Instead, Nichiren is referring to an understanding through mugi washing, baby, through doubt-free faith, a conviction through practice. Okay? We must develop our confidence in this point through faith and practice so we can say from the depths of our hearts, that's right. And why can you say that's right?
Because you have the.
Because you have the proof of actual fact in your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay? Not for any other damn reason. Because everybody's got a lot of theory. Everybody's got a lot of profound understanding. Yada, 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 yada. Are you seeing any power? That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right? That's right comes from seeing the power. That faith comes from seeing the power. That practice ultimately comes from seeing the power.
Right.
So getting benefit is very important, okay? Because it's fundamental to your capacity to grow and deepen, okay?
Mm.
And if you're not getting benefit, you need to do a personal check. Why am I chanting and practicing the way I am and I'm getting no result? If that's the case, it is not because of the Gohonzon, okay? It's because you've grown so much, it's time for you to take another step. That's when that happens. That's when that happens. Because that's why you ask that question of yourself to the Gohonzon. Do you understand? So you must face those questions where you're not growing. If you have no questions from the time you're a 10 or 15 year member to the time you're a 30-year member, you didn't do shit for 15 years. Really? Okay? So, chanting Nam Myoho Rengekyo. That's then President Ikeda goes back into the real. Chanting Nam Myoho Rengekyo with confidence that the Buddha, the mystic law, and we ordinary people are one and equal. In concrete terms, this means chanting with conviction that each of us can, without fail, attain Buddhahood in this lifetime, just as Nichiren teaches, just as the OTT talks about. Chanting Nam Myoho Rengekyo with confidence in Nichiren's teaching that we will definitely experience benefit. Through such confidence in Nichiren's teaching, we can receive the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death through faith and practice. Do you understand? Okay. Everybody's with me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Chanting with such self-reliant, self-motivated faith in the belief that Myoho Rengekyo is the teaching of enlightenment for one's own life, we can acquire the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death. So what did that just say? Chanting with the same mind as Nichiren, we can attain the same life state as Nichiren. And we, like Nichiren, can acquire, it says here, but it's actually bring forth the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death, which we were born with, because in doing what that just said, we are bodhisattvas of the earth. Not theoretical ones, actual ones. Do you understand? Okay, so continuing at the very bottom of page 23. On attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime, which is another pamphlet I'll give you because we'll read that one too. All right?
Yeah.
On attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime, because they're mentioning all of these, so I might as well let you go ahead and have them all. On attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime, Nichiren writes, nevertheless, even though you chant and believe in Myoho Rengekyo, if you believe the law is outside of you, you are embracing not the mystic law, but an inferior teaching. So if you don't understand the fact that you're the Buddha, you still got something to understand. Okay? There's still something that you don't understand because it's stated over and over and over again. It is also important to note that he says, we, and they've got we italicized, we ordinary human beings. Okay? Why is that significant? Why is the fact that we is italicized here, and the expression Nietzsche uses is we ordinary human beings? Why is that significant?
Because we are not special.
We are very special. We're very special. To be awakened is very special, okay? What he's saying here, though, is that I'm no different than you. Nichiren is special. So are the bodhisattvas of the earth. Okay? All right? But there is no difference between the original teacher and the original disciples. Okay? And we've already qualified who are the bodhisattvas of the earth. Everybody. Right? Okay, so, do you understand what I just said? No perplexity from what I just said?
No.
Okay. So I'll say it again. Also, it is important to note, this is the end of this little chapter thing. Also, it is important to note that he says, we human beings, we must chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo not only for our own enlightenment, but also for the enlightenment of all other human beings. Simply, this is Nichiren's encouragement for us to develop faith and practice for the sake of Kosen Rufu. When we chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo to reveal our own Buddhahood, and to achieve Kosen Rufu, to achieve widespread propagation as we've been instructed by Nichiren, we can receive the heritage of the ultimate law of life and death. And don't forget, that's what we're trying to get our heads wrapped around, right? The ultimate law of life and death. My friend Renee, Catherine's mom, Amy's dad, my father-in-law, everybody that we know that is no longer in this realm. Going on page 25. For one who summons up one's faith and chants Myoho Renge-kyo with the profound insight that now is the last moment of one's life, the sutra proclaims, when the lives of these persons come to an end, they will be received into the hands of 1,000 Buddhas who will free them from all fear and keep them from falling into the evil paths of existence. How can we possibly hold back our tears at the inexpressible joy of knowing that not just one or two, not just 100 or 200, but as many as 1,000 Buddhas will come to greet us with open arms. Concerning one who disbelieves the Lotus Sutra, because the sutra states when his life comes to an end, he will enter the Avicii hell. The wardens of hell will surely come for one and take one away by the hands. How pitiful. The 10 kings of the world of the dead will then pass judgment, and the heavenly messengers who have been with one since birth will berate one for one's evil deeds. Think of those 1,000 Buddhas, the Gosho continues. Think of those 1,000 Buddhas extending their hands to all of Nichiren's disciples and lay supporters who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as the melons or moonflowers extending their slender vines. Continuing on page 26. Don't take any of that literally. Okay? In this passage, Nichiren explains that the ultimate expression of self-reliant faith is the profound insight that now is the last moment of one's life, a realization only befitting one's faith in the ultimate law of life and death, Myoho Renge-kyo. To realize that now is the last moment of one's life entails deeply grasping as the truth of one's own life the solemn reality of death, which no one can avoid.
Right.
Okay, now what the hell did that just say, huh? Let's go through it slowly. In this passage, which we just read, okay, where he's talking about wardens of hell and all kind of other weird shit, all right? He's saying, Nichiren Daishonin explains the ultimate expression of what kind of faith? Deep faith? What is self-reliant faith? He just mentioned here going into this talking about self-reliant faith. Why is he emphasizing self-reliant faith? What is self-reliant faith?
Relies on yourself.
Yes?
So
And?
it's introspection.
Yes? But self-reliant would mean that your faith is so strong that you're able to withstand the onslaught of resistance from the 3 obstacles and the 4 devils, okay, without having to be encouraged to resist them. And also, self-reliant faith is the only kind of faith that will get you to study this to the degree that you'll need to study it to understand it completely. Okay? In other words, no organized entity can push you along at the rate that you can push yourself.
Yes.
Okay? And no organization entity can gather everybody to bring them up at the same time, because that isn't the way it works either. This is a individual self-realization. It's impossible to get a group of people and say, well, you all have the same karma. I'm sure you are already. No, you have to. That's why Daisaku Ikeda is doing everything that he's doing these days. It's all about self-reliant faith. He's laying it out so you don't really need much more than you yourself, the Gohonzon, and an understanding.
Right.
And you can go trip out and do it. All right? So, Nichiren Daishonin explains that the ultimate expression of self-reliant faith is the profound insight that now is the last moment of one's life. So, what would that say? The ultimate expression of this kind of mugi-washing, doubt-free faith. Because if you've got doubt-free faith, that's self-reliant faith. That means that you believe the teaching 24/7. Okay? When you run into obstacles, you run to the Gohonzon. Okay? To overcome devilish functions or a lack of clarity. Any kind of doubt, you squash. You don't let it fester, right? But why is he saying profound insight is now the last moment of his life is the ultimate expression? Because what that is saying is talking about, again, being ever mindful of the Gohonzon. We don't go for days without thinking about the Gohonzon. Or generally speaking, more than hours. We have a practice that's maintaining a relationship with the teaching and the object of devotion on an ongoing daily basis. Now, if you don't chant every day, even if you've got the Gohonzon, that's not what I'm talking about. Right? You understand what I'm saying? So this is practicing now as a Buddha. All right? So, when you're practicing as a Buddha, you're practicing knowing that you're only going to be in the Sahe world for so long. Okay? Do you ever feel like you can retire? No. You cannot retire. Not only that, you realize, shit, I ain't got that much long to teach as much as I want to teach. There's so much to try and help clarify. Okay? So you're always in a countdown. You're in a countdown. Last moment of my life. Well, no, I'm still alive, so that wasn't the last moment of my life. But I understand it could have been. And I take life that seriously. And I know there are no more days off. I took all those days off in the first 10 years, the first 15 years, the first 20 years. Frankly, the first 30 years. Okay? I could take days off. I can't take days off anymore. My whole life begins to completely come apart if I can't even think about it. It's like, it just, no. And it hasn't always been that way. And nobody's telling me to do that. I'm not practicing with the Soka Gakkai. I'm not practicing with Nichiren Shoshu. I have self-reliant faith. Okay? Guess what? Daisaku Ikeda is teaching you the same thing. That's what he's talking about. All right? So, when we realize this, so what's he saying? This is a realization. This is a point of realization. It's not like when we learn this. Okay? This is from contemplative prayer, man. That's why we don't have to do the seated position meditation. We do active meditation. When you're chanting to the Gohonzon, the whole universe is opened up. A minute ago, Nichikan just said, hey, that Gohonzon is the life of Nichiren Daishonin. You could be sitting there rapping into your original teacher. That's what I do. I have conversations with the Gohonzon, not like it's spooky weird for me to be actually perceiving that I'm communicating with my mentor. With my mentors. There's no separation between Mr. Osaki and that Gohonzon. There's no separation between any of the people that have taught me so much and that Gohonzon. So that Gohonzon is like a mirror into the entire universe. It's a gateway into Ku. Now, I have the faith to know that those karmic influences that I constantly say thank you to, They feel that thank you. They know that thank you. That's why I was born in this lifetime with the fortune to know them well enough to still be saying thank you after all these years. Okay? That's what he's talking about getting to. Who's the one that you're constantly saying the ultimate thank you to? Nichiren Daishonin himself. He's not a guy that died a long time ago. He's alive in your life right now. I just read that to you, right? Okay. That's why when people slander Daisaku Ikeda, I don't really give a shit about anything that Daisaku Ikeda has done or not done. I know what he did do as it relates to this. Could I be sitting here in any way, shape, or form talking to you as an American in English, helping anybody understand anything without the efforts of Daisaku Ikeda? No. So you slander him, I'm ready to kick your ass. Okay? And I'm sorry, that's just the way I feel about it. Okay? So it's just like, by the way, anybody watching, last week as everybody left, they said, so Tom, people ask us, are you an SGI guy? And I said, no. And everybody went, whoa. I said, I'm a disciple of Daisaku Ikeda. Okay? They're two different things. I already know enough about the SGI to know you can be a member of the SGI and you're just a member of the SGI. Okay? Period. All right? If you're a Buddha, if you're a Bodhisattva of the earth, the SGI is a great place to get started. It's a great place to continue to support. But when there are things that need to be changed, you need to stand up for those changes. And as we all know, that's why we have this discussion. When we realize this, he says, we awaken to the profound significance of our being alive today and embracing the correct Buddhist teaching. This elicits our seriousness, our earnest faith. We go from kid to adolescence to adult to old people, right? Wise people. To live each day and each moment with our whole being is the meaning of now is the last moment of one's life. Death is the final settlement of life's accounts, an entire existence summed up in a single moment. No matter how much power, wealth, and fame we may enjoy, these do not help us in the least to face our own death. But if we live to the fullest, to where we would have no regret should this moment be the last, I'm already there, then we are living with that profound insight. Those who chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with such earnestness will definitely develop the richest state of life and face their final moment with joy and peace and without fear or anxiety. And I'm taking that promise to the bank. So that's why I don't. It's like, well, shame on you if that isn't the way it turns out. Okay? Citing the following passage from Encouragements of the Bodhisattva Universal Worthy, the Lotus Sutra's 28th chapter, Nichiren describes the life state of those who chant with the profound insight that now is the last moment of one's life as they meet death. When the lives of these persons come to an end, they will be received into the hands of 1,000 Buddhas who will free them from all fear and keep them from falling into the evil paths of existence. Does he say that's the way it is with everybody? Does he say all you have to do is chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and that will happen? No. He does qualify. Nichiren describes the life state of those who chant with the profound insight that now is the last moment of one's life as they meet death. When the lives of these persons, he's qualifying, these persons come to an end, they will be received. Not everyone. They will be received into the hands of 1,000 Buddhas who will free them from all fear and keep them from falling into the evil paths of existence. In the face of death, people are normally filled with fear and anxiety. Those who have upheld the correct teaching of Buddhism throughout their lives, however, will experience a state of absolute peace as if being received into the hands of 1,000 Buddhas. As if being. Do you understand? You say qualifying. It's not literal. When you go to Ku, it's not substantiality. There are no dudes. There's no party. Right? Okay? So think it through. Don't forget when the original words were spoken, what was the level of understanding? And then what is upon us now to perceive what the truth of that is in the 21st century as it relates to the people of the latter day of the law. All right? Okay, so in the face of death, people are normally filled with fear and anxiety. Those who have upheld the correct teaching of Buddhism throughout their lives, however, will experience a state of absolute peace as if being received into the hands of 1,000 Buddhas. In other words, all the functions of the universe will protect them after death and in their next lifetime, preventing them from falling into life states of the evil paths. This is Nichiren's promise. He writes, how can we possibly hold back our tears at the inexpressible joy of knowing that not just one or two, not just 100 or 200, but as many as 1,000 Buddhas will come to greet us with open arms. See, that was actually code. He says, here he rebukes the teachings of the Pure Land school, which was very popular then. Pure Land taught that those who chant the name of Amida Buddha at the time of death would be received at death by Amida, and the two bodhisattvas, perceiver of the world, sound in great power. In contrast, Nichiren says here that those who have maintained their faith in the mystic law will be received by not just one or 100 or 200, but as many as 1,000 Buddhas. Those who have slandered the law through their disbelief, says Nichiren, will fall into a state of continual suffering as stated in simile and parable, the third Lotus Sutra chapter. When his life comes to an end, he will enter the Avicii hell, from Lotus Sutra, page 74. All of our actions will be reflected in our life condition at the moment of death. That's just a fact. That's the way it's going to be. That's why you should be thinking about it now. Because no matter what you think about or what you do or don't do, it will all be reflected exactly as it was. It won't be embellished. It won't be subtracted. It will be the exact equation. No one can escape from causal law. For this reason, those who slander the law out of their disbelief will enter a state of continual suffering as described in the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren metaphorically describes their circumstances as being greeted by the wardens of hell. Metaphorically. Okay, so in other words, he's not talking about wardens of hell, because when you go to Ku, there's no dudes even with, wardens of hell, right? The 10 kings of the world of dead are 10 judges said to pass judgment according to the deeds of the deceased while alive, and the heavenly messengers who have been with one since birth have kept record of one's actions, good and bad, and report everything to King Yama in the world of the dead. Of course, the 10 kings, I'm glad President Kate is able to just say this. Of course, the 10 kings and the heavenly messengers do not really exist. For those of you that read that literally and want to hang on to it in the 21st century, shit. Of course, the 10 kings and the heavenly messengers do not really exist. They are merely symbols of the strict law of causality at work in life. Only human beings have the capacity to be aware of the impermanence of existence, the knowledge of their own mortality. Perhaps this is why only humans have religions. Because of their awareness, humans think of how to create value in their limited lives. Herein lies the dignity of humanity. On the other hand, people also tend to shrug off this awareness, thinking of death as an event far in the future. Someday I will do better. After this, I will start to live in earnest. So thinking, many people spend their whole lifetimes in frivolous pursuits. Or many people will think, I'll get around to really studying and understanding the teaching later. Okay? Someday I will do better. After this, I will start living in earnest. So thinking, many people spend their whole lifetimes in frivolous pursuits. When they realize death is close at hand, it is too late. Right? You can't ever think about the Gohonzon if the only time you started is just because the doctor said, by the way, you're fourth stage. Good luck with that prayer, if that's when you're starting. Okay? But if you've been positioning yourself knowing that that kind of challenge can happen at any time, never taking anything for granted, always cherishing this moment and being willing, if this is the moment, this is the moment. I have no regrets. But fighting for the sake of the law to show actual proof. Now that's a different prayer when you're given that notice from the doctor that you got stage 4. Because that's one you can't lose from. So thinking, many people spend their whole lifetimes in frivolous pursuits. When they realize death is close at hand, it is too late. They must face the end of their lives without having accumulated life's true treasures. Okay, and that's what we're trying to do. For this reason, the second Soka Gakkai president, Josei Toda, once said, "In truth, we practice faith for the time of our death." SGI President Daisaku Ikeda has stated, if we're looking for certainty, nothing is more certain than death. Therefore, the important thing is that right now, without hesitation, we do our best to accumulate treasures of the heart that will endure eternally. That's the end of page 29. Next week we'll start on page 30. Thank you very much.
Thank you.